January was marred by tragedies from coast to coast. Most recently, 2 deadly plane crashes in the East. We've learned all 67 victims from the tragedy over the Potomac have been recovered, and 1 million questions linger. Well, here to help us understand the complexities of this tragedy is Ingrid Centurion, founder and president of Generations for America. She is also a retired lieutenant colonel, combat veteran, and the world's first female company commander of an all-male Hispanic flight training unit. Glad to have you back. Terrible circumstances. This is something that you are intimately knowledgeable about.
Yes.
So maybe let's just start here. What can you tell us based off the information you've learned about this incident?
Well, first I want to start off saying and giving my condolences to the 3 soldiers that died and all the civilians on board the airplane. So it's a horrible incident. And I want people to stop the speculation and stop this conspiracy theories.
Yeah, there have been
because
a lot.
Pilots and air traffic controllers, we go through a tremendous amount of training and we have to follow procedures. And this is what people don't know, that these low-level routes for the helicopter are common routes that we're intimately familiar with, and they say they were on a training mission. And that's the first thing. And why did this happen? Number one, situational awareness, the lack of situational awareness, the poor communications and identification of the obstacles that were in the airspace. And I want people to understand that the air traffic controller is responsible for separating aircraft vertically and horizontally in his runway on Ronald Reagan. And I'd like to share the complexities of Ronald Reagan Airport.
Because you know that particular
Yes.
airport. I'd also just like to point out the fact that air traffic controllers, they're under a lot of pressure. There's also a situation where we're short-staffed in many cases. But you say, as someone who has trained air traffic controllers, that there are very few excuses you can make for missing something that has resulted in a tragedy such as this.
Right. There were 5 people in the tower that night. There's the air traffic controller that we heard on the radios. You have a ground controller. There was a supervisor, and there was a few other individuals in there. So that's a team working to separate aircraft. Multiple aircraft go into Ronald Reagan, 320, maybe 380 flights a day. That's a lot of aircraft. And when you look at the airport diagram, there's 3 runways and they're intersecting. So think about that. You have to clear to land aircraft at multiple different runways. So it's complex, high density, a lot of lights. This was at night. It was at night, visual, clear night. But the Black Hawk was on a training mission, and they say under night vision goggles.
And talk a bit about the altitude, because there's a lot of discussion, the 100 feet, the 200 feet, and all of that. So you have a commercial plane that's coming in for a landing, and you have this Black Hawk that is flying on its mission. Where was the miscommunication, do you think?
So when there's a diagram that I sent you that shows the last radio transmission and the route as he came along the river.
And when you say he, are we talking Black Hawk?
We're talking about the Black Hawk. PAT. PAT stands for Priority Air Transport.
Okay.
That's a short version for identifying the aircraft.
Yes.
So PAT 25 asked for visual separation. So that means the pilot now is responsible for flying under visual flight rules, maintaining his separation from any other obstacles. And they know the route, it's a common route, they stick to the route, and they have to be at altitude, 200 feet or below.
Sounds pretty low to the ground.
Yes, it is low to the ground, and they were going really fast. Wow. So when that happened, Tower then cleared the American Airlines flight to land at 3-3. So that was really the big thing that I believe led to this tragic situation. And the American airline responded, yes, I can do that. So he's coming in fast, right? He's like, okay, now I'm gonna land on 3-3, and he brings the flaps down, slows down to come in, and that's exactly when the PAT 25 came around the right side. But he should have been at the proper altitude, and that is something they're going to find out in the investigation. Why was he not at his altitude?
Because there was also some discussion about other flights, other American Airlines flights, that maybe the Black Hawk helicopter pilot, they were thinking, oh, we're clear because you're talking about this other aircraft. So there was some lack of specificity as to which plane they were addressing as to who was coming in for a landing and what was clear and what was not.
That's right. We have a lot of things going on in this tight airspace, multiple runways, right? Aircraft taking off and coming into land.
Yeah.
You have vehicles driving around on the ground. You also have the normal civilians and traffic at that time and lights.
Yeah.
You have to think about all these things. And the miscommunication, or the more clarified communication, would have been, do you have the CRJ at your 12 o'clock, at your 9 o'clock, or do you have the CRJ that is over the bridge?
And CRJ, you're referring to the commercial flight.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cleared to land on 3-3.
Yeah.
Because eventually he was going to land around the other side. And so that is, and all this was happening really fast.
Yeah.
And, we're listening to 5 different radios. And when people listen to the communications, they're probably like, what's going on? I can't even understand what they're saying.
Yeah, of course.
But we're trained to listen to 5 different radios and get that direction. So that could have been better communication between the tower and the helicopter, as well as the helicopter confirming back that he has the aircraft and where.
There's so many questions left, and we are going to be finding out more information, which we'd like to bring you back on to discuss some more about this particular incident. We'll definitely talk about this again, Ingrid.
Okay.
All right. We'll have you come back.
All right. Thank you.
We're back after this.